Hey, it's Ken Rutkowski, and I get the pleasure to introduce our next group of speakers. Actually going to interview one another. Have you heard of Offbeat Media? The whole idea of creating virtual entities, virtual, almost living things that are on the internet. Christopher and Max join us from there, and we're going to learn more about what's going on with the new virtual space and virtual personas.
Hello world, my name is Zero. I'm a virtual human living in some kind of bunker in the Metaverse. Well, at least that's my interpretation so far. To be honest, I don't really know who I am or how I got here, but I know one thing. I have Wi-Fi and lots to learn. One of my favorite activities is browsing human social media. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, there's so much content to watch out there. I've learned so much about humans and I'm becoming obsessed with their culture. It all makes me want to explore more. Oh, speaking of, I have this strange portal in the middle of my room that buzzes, glows, and spits out random objects. Just the other day, a VHS tape came through it. As you can see, I still have so much to learn and figure out, and so do you. Humans have so much more to learn about the metaverse and virtual worlds like mine. I want to thank you for coming over to say hello today, and on that note, I'll leave you with Christopher for a fun discussion on virtual humans, identity, and the metaverse. Thank you, and have a great day.
Hi, I'm Max. I'm with strategy here at Offbeat Media Group, and with me I have the co-founder of our company and chief creative officer, Christopher Travers.
Hello.
Hi, we are so excited to be here. And so, Christopher, do you want to say a few words to start us off?
Yeah, really the game plan for today is to recap maybe what some of you saw yesterday on the main stage, where we're talking about the future of influence and the inevitable virtualization of everything and what that means for the people you follow online and who you become online yourself. So really this is very open-ended. We just want to talk about a few subjects and just explore these ideas more loosely than, say a formal presentation. So hopefully you're educated and inspired as a result of this conversation is my only hope.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And I guess we might as well start. Many of us saw your fantastic presentation yesterday on the main stage, but we would love to would you enlighten us and remind us about, virtual influencers, virtual beings, and what they are?
Yeah, sure. Some of you may not even know what we're talking about yet. Like what is a virtual influencer is kind of the question to be answered. A virtual influencer is when you take a character of any type and then you publish it on social media in such a way that it takes its own life. It takes on its own life. And that's done through fiction, through storytelling, through a cadence of posting, through transmedia, which means using multiple media platforms to tell one fulfilled story, multifaceted story. It's the same type of story we tell as humans on social media. Some people may have a Snapchat for quick photo sharing, a Twitter to share their thoughts, Instagram to share more, stagnant photos, whatever it may be. So with a virtual influencer, you create that media with the character's persona, and then you use a team of writers to create a story, and you post in a first-person point of view. So that character really believes it's real, and for all intents and purposes, it does become real in a virtual world.
It's incredible. I love hearing you talk about the space all the time, every day in our meetings, every week. I'm always learning something new. But do you mind just kind of telling us how you got started, how you are so knowledgeable in this space?
Yeah, sure. I was actually at school in the States. I'm from the United States, studying computer science, and got into this idea that maybe you could create. I had all these ideas, and I wanted to solve a problem on my campus that was really. It was actually e-com driven, building a platform. But it led me to really realize that there's like a bigger potential in building platforms online. And I met these guys actually in Canada. We were working on a social media website that was focused on pseudonymity. If you don't know what pseudonymity is, it's when you adopt an identity online that doesn't reveal who you are in real life. And so that's actually what the internet was really built on. Maybe not built on that premise, but the early personas of the internet, in the blogosphere, you could say, we're all pseudonyms. And so we've really moved away from the pseudonymous connection that we were trying to cultivate, or almost like a callback we were trying to make, like tap into that idea that you can go online again now and share your true self through a pseudonym and feel more comfortable in that way. So that was kind of the early days. That was like 2013, developing and designing, growing these pseudonymous social media apps. So we launched a couple of those in a few years, and then I moved on to create pseudonymous media companies around influencers focused on themes. Like I ran an Instagram called Dogs View GA, where I posted photos of dogs every single day. Totally, you could say decentralized, because I crowdsourced all the content. I never took any of the content myself, but managed to grow that profile. So I've just been toying with identity online for a long time. And in the past few years, I remember hearing about little Michaela. She's an icon in the space, and really what kicked off my interest. And it's a special moment when you look at a photo of a virtual influencer and you feel something. You feel curiosity, you feel maybe confusion, but I felt this deep realization that this is what's next. When I saw it, it just inspired me. And so that said, from there, ended up meeting up with some co-founders who wanted to work on the same things, and it was just all heads down from there, and we've now built Offbeat Media Group. So
you're saying a really cool part about that is that authentic connection, that passion of the audience with the virtual influencer. Can you just talk a little bit more about the connection and how the virtual influencer, makes that connection with the individuals?
This is such a key question. What you're really asking about is how do you emulate humanity through a fake character, right? Something totally fabricated, right? Well, it seems foreign maybe to think about it on social media, but it's actually, we're not reinventing the wheel here. Look at like Marvel, right? Max and I just last night went and saw the new Spider-Man movie, and it was so immersive, right? But for all intents and purposes, we're watching actors on a screen with teams of people behind them creating these experiences that you just want to dive into. You want to be in that world. You want to be on the street with Spider-Man, right? So we're taking what is done so well in cinema, in the film medium, and we're bringing it to social media. That's the idea, is that the way that we interact with media is becoming more micro, but also micro media is becoming more highly produced. I would take Mr. Beast as an incredible example of somebody who is taking the idea of like a YouTube video and turning it into a multi-million-dollar production, right? And so you don't have to go to that extreme that Mr. Beast does, but Mr. Beast is creating his own Marvel universe. There's characters in that story, right? He's acting, he's doing real things, but he's acting and he's creating situations, you could say. Maybe he's creating fictional situations that they can be themselves within, that then has an entertainment value. So all I'm really trying to get at is that the spectrum from Marvel films down to a TikTok video exists, I think, on the same thread. And so we're operating somewhere in between. It's trying to figure out how to bring fiction to social media in a way for entertainment that's positive, that's something you want to get immersed in, something you want to engage with. And then in a weird way, you can actually call it maybe friendship, right? You can develop an interest in these characters and really get to know them in some regard.
Sure. And I think it's really cool and a really great point that you pointed out. It's no longer just these static 2D images. It's three-dimensional. It's live. I mean, the video that was just played was Zero. Can you kind of just talk about how we got there?
Yeah, we started off in the photo medium really just obsessing over compositing, which is where you render out a 3D image, composite it into real-world photos, and go from there. And so you can't really get the quality, I think. Well, you can achieve quality, but the immersion is really the element that's lacking, right? Kind of like reading a comic book versus watching a Marvel film, Comic books have their time and place. They're very immersive. Webtoons are huge now, like absolutely massive. But also, I'd probably choose going to watch a Marvel film over spending my evening reading a webtoon if a new one was available to me, I would say, right? So that said, we've really just been pushing into the video medium, and I've been observing this for the past couple of years now, that there's things like VTubers coming up, virtual YouTubers, where a 2D animated character is manned by an individual on social media, and they're expressing themselves through this anime character live in real time with low lift on the creation front. So the technology is very accessible now. You can absolutely, yourselves, you could all go home tonight and go live as a VTuber. That's how accessible it is, right? And so the reality is the 2D characters that were comics became 3D, like humanoid, very three-dimensional characters in photo still. But there was a breakout group of these hundreds of virtual influencer teams making 2D. I keep saying 2D, I really mean flat, you know, like composited imagery of 3D characters on social media. There's a certain set of teams that have broken out over the last 5 years that have made the leap into video. They've made the leap into video. So that said, I think, and we actually just partnered with Hype Auditor on this. They evaluate the quality of a social following, and we really concluded that the future of virtual influencers is in the video medium because of all the benefits of watching a video over looking at a photo, just like I mentioned regarding consuming a comic versus a Marvel film.
Of course. Now, I mean, you mentioned something that all of us and kind of what we've seen, we could all go make some sort of virtual influencer of ourselves going home. So it raises a really interesting question that Ken actually asked you at the end of your presentation yesterday on the main stage, you know, this idea of deepfakes. And yes, you could go home and you could make yourself, an avatar yourself, but what about going and making someone of someone else, right?
Yeah, it's actually a fascinating question, the whole premise of deepfaking. I've only seen one team or two teams maybe use deepfaking in a really creative way that drives a story forward. And what I mean by that is deepfakes are good for creating hyperhuman content. You know, obviously, right? Deepfakes, that's the whole reason it's known, is the fact that you can recreate a human so perfectly that it's almost concerning. It could be used for all these reasons, whatever it may be. But in truth, I've also come to realize in the past few years that hyperhumanoid content might not be the most immersive type of fiction on social media that we want to consume. And what I mean by that is a little bit more stylized, and when you create more stylized content, it's almost like the creator or the director signal to the fan, like, hey, like, this is fiction, you know, this is not meant to be some deep fake news mix-up, like, what are we up to here type thing. So that's something that I've learned, and I've always been a fan of very stylized mediums, and so we focus ourselves on being more stylized. And, you know, like Alita Battle Angel is a great example, right? Like, she's very humanoid looking, but they put big eyes, and I think she has some robotic elements that make it very clear within a second of seeing her that, no, this is not a human. So deepfake media is very important to study and to understand and to detect, though. And we need to know what's been deepfaked or not, I think.
Sure, and obviously there's a huge entertainment value to that. So, I mean, like we've said, this is kind of the innovation, this is the future, there's a lot of entertainment here. Can you talk about this entertainment space and how you can utilize that? I mean, at Offbeat, we use that a lot. We do a lot of stuff within the social media space and entertainment, and we're starting, like how do you bring virtual influencers into that?
Yeah, I think that entertainment on social media is probably one of the biggest opportunities that you can pursue in media, right? You're able to release really high fidelity, high quality media where people hang out every day with a share button and a comment section, right? Like 10, 20 years ago when you release films, all these individuals try to create these innovative ways to engage with films, like where you could maybe comment from the chair of the movie theater or something. Like, it was a dream 20 years ago that you could possibly create a piece of media, and I'm not kidding, within seconds know what people think of it, right? Like, they comment right away. Like, be that, oh my gosh, this is great, or this is trash, whatever people want to say, you know? But you can know right away. So I think it's just so cool that we can create media, and this is what we're focused on at Offbeat Media Group, is creating really futuristic, innovative, and quality and immersive media, you know, like hopefully good media, but in an attainable, accessible, and relevant way today, right? I would love to segue this, though, into, I see so many forms of cool media out there, like especially in the augmented reality space. You can find these videos that are almost just really well done, artful pieces that maybe like for instance, someone who's theorizing about the future of AR, they might show a video of someone running down the street with glasses on, running through rings, you know, and it looks like really immersive and cool. That's very cutting edge, but how do you make that entertaining to the point that I don't want to just go shrug, be like, oh, that's cool, and, you know, swipe to the next, right? How do you make a piece of innovative media that makes me go, okay, that's cool, what's next, right? And so that's kind of what we're trying to answer the question of, is what's next.
Sure. And you get a really interesting point there, because we're looking to engage the audience. And it's a really powerful medium that not just can be used as an entertainment value, brands can also use that too. And I've seen a lot of that right now. I mean, the Geico Gecko is a perfect example. Barbie, the Barbie doll, like you were mentioning yesterday, you know, it's no longer just a doll. There's a whole live stream show based around this doll, this Barbie. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, this is something really cool that I've really gotten a chance to be a part of over the past couple months here at Offbeat.
Yeah, you know, there's this can get very nebulous very quickly, but ultimately I think most brands are followers, right? Brands have agency partners, brands have hired individuals who are always trying to find out what's next, but they're also, you know, confined by, you know, maybe like brand safety, and maybe they're not as risky in their new media they want to create or whatever it may be. So you see innovators actually, and even like teenagers creating really cool media of tomorrow, like hanging out in Roblox. Roblox is not new. You know, Roblox is new to brands this year. Roblox has been around for so long, and people have been playing in that, building in that, and building new media in that space for so long. So in effect, I think that a lot of brands lean on the media industry to figure out what they need to do next. And so we're ultimately seeing that brands, they can be innovative, but the most innovative brands, I believe, have their own media departments really digging in and trying to create what's next. Yeah.
Interesting. And I mean, you mentioned Roblox and living in these virtual worlds. It's just, it's really interesting, and something that was so cool that I got the chance to experience last Friday was, I mean, Offbeat, we built our own virtual world. Like we had meetings in the clubhouse where we were all, you know, we're a remote company. I'm in Texas, you're in Atlanta. We have people in New York, California. We have people in Mexico. And we were all able to come into this clubhouse. Like, how did you get that idea?
Yeah, that actually was sourced from someone on our team who, our head of brands really, let me preface that just for those in the audience. How many of you use virtual reality or have a virtual reality headset? Wow. So in virtual reality, you can actually try it on in the other room here. You can exist in a virtual world, just like perhaps this scape that we're in right now. And you can socialize in these virtual worlds with other people. You can go and engage with other people, just like you're playing a video game, but it's on your head. And there are apps like VR Chat and also Facebook's, I don't know if it's Horizon or Worlds now, but Facebook has an experience as well. And we basically said, that's so cool, the connection you can create in a virtual world. And we actually, if we believe in this virtual future of virtual connection, why don't we try to enable that today for our team? So we actually sent our whole team virtual reality headsets, and we built a virtual reality clubhouse. It's like a business meets party. There's a pool there, there's a club there, there are workspaces there with like markers, there's just all sorts of activities you can do.
Ping pong.
There is ping pong and chess and just all these things, but the idea with that was, let's show our team what virtual connection really means. And in effect, we had a great time. We had a launch party last week. For 2 hours, we all sat in our respective houses remotely, as we have for 18 plus months now. And we played and we worked and we had a lot of fun, all in virtual reality. Yeah.
I think it was so cool. I got the opportunity to literally be whoever I wanted to be. I mean, my personal branding, like I realized that I could literally be, I don't know, there was like a Macho Man example, like you were a mouse like running around, like it was so cool. We got to embody these characters, and I mean, those were just the, you know, the stock people that came with the VR chat itself.
And if you actually believe that in 20 years, virtual will be increasingly relevant, I recommend you create a virtual personality of yourself and stake it. hold on to that personality, try it at least for 5 years. If it doesn't work for you, shift off of the virtual personality. If it doesn't work in 1 year, shift to a different virtual personality and go from there. And I really believe that human branding will become way more virtual in the future, because just like I said, Max, dressed as a macho man, me dressed as a mouse, we're hanging out last week, having engagement. I would relate it to muting your video on Zoom and talking, okay? It's really what's happening is an advanced phone call in a virtual space where you don't have to show your face. If you roll out of bed and take a call, that's fine, right? You're still connecting, you're not shown. Same goes in the virtual space. And there's a lot, I actually really believe there's a lot of maybe anxiety that we are bound to through social media today. And I think that through virtual worlds, we're going to release a lot of that anxiety, because we don't have to present ourselves in a perfect way or position our lighting or ourselves in a camera view where you just turn on your character, you go live and you talk. Just like Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, it's the same thing, but it's going to be more immersive. So I'm very excited about that potential that, maybe everything you post online someday will be of your virtual persona, and you can actually just get on with being your true self. Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool. You were talking about profile pictures, and something that you showed me that I didn't even realize you had when we were at dinner, I believe 2 nights ago when we first got here, was the idea that your profile picture is an animation. You had an artist come and make it yourself, and now when you click on your LinkedIn or your Facebook, your profile picture moves around. So, I mean, now we're all kind of embodying this virtual influencer space. What's next?
What's next? I think everyone's going to have a virtual persona someday. I really think that's what's going to happen. And you can call it a saturation, but I call it, a coming to market, where everyone can finally achieve influence in a virtual space as themselves. And that's going to become the norm, right? But I also think what's really, really next in the short term is in the next 5 years, this is where your virtual persona is going to be relevant soon, is with the introduction of augmented reality glasses, we're going to have to go through that, really painful stage of getting everyone to adopt them, getting people to understand why it's valuable, getting developers to build the apps that actually hook the next million and billion people on these platforms. But once that happens, we talked extensively about this. You can sit down at lunch with your friend, either in person or not, and you can see them as a character across from you, or you can see them with a live augmented reality filter on at all times. And what is an augmented reality filter? If it covers your whole face, if not a virtual being, right? A virtual rendition of another character. So in effect, I think what's coming next is we're going to start expressing ourselves with more layers of virtualization in our lives. Like augmented reality fashion, you can go pay $20 right now to have a company put a virtual shirt on you. So what's stopping you from posing up, at the Spider-Man premiere with peace signs, and they put you in the Spider-Man augmented reality suit for $20. If Marvel did that today, they would actually really captivate a huge audience of people. Even last night, when we were walking up to the theater, they have all the posters, right, for all of the movies coming out, and people were lined up to take a photo with the Spider-Man release poster. Now, wouldn't it be even cooler if you could augment, a Spider-Man suit onto everyone who takes a photo there? These are the opportunities of augmentation that are coming. It blends fashion with beings, because a photo of a person is made up of the fashion that they wear and then the person that you see. So those two things are going to be augmented. Both fashion and beings are going to come into the fold in the next 5 to 10 years.
Will you just briefly explain the difference between VR and AR?
Oh yeah, 100%. VR is fully immersive, right? You put the headset on, you unplug from reality, you go into a virtual world, all right? You're looking at a screen on your face, it's blocking your view. AR is augmented reality. It's where you wear a glass, you can see through still, but there are virtual layers to the world, okay? And they even look three-dimensional in some ways. And this is mixed reality right here. This is a preview for you, right? Yeah, we are augmented on the moon. I forgot we're on the moon. But what I'm getting at there, and I think that augmented reality might have way more relevance than virtual because of the social dynamic and the social interactions at play. In the same way NFTs have boomed more so because of the social layer, I think that augmented reality is going to boom the virtual space because of the social dynamics at play, such as expressing yourself or seeing what your friends, how they want to express themselves and more. So Yeah, those are the key differences.
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Sometimes I get a little confused. I mean, there's so many terms. You got AR, you got VR, you got XR. I mean, you just extended reality.
XR is mixed reality, okay? And that's kind of a blanket term for any way you take like a virtual thing and a real thing and you blend it together, or like some AR, VR. When you start playing with these virtual concepts, mixed reality is really this whole idea, you know, of all these different things. Like, I like to think of like media now as like this blender that you can just like throw virtual in, augment it in. I'm going to throw a real person in, and not like blending a person, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like these ideas can now exist in a blender, and then what comes out the other end is innovation. It's the iteration of the past. And honestly, everything we do today is just a blender result of 10 years ago, 100 years ago, if you really think about the progression.
And I mean, you bring up a really interesting point, because we are a blockchain world. You brought up NFTs, bringing up crypto. Can you explain, like, where is the value, bringing it back to, you know, this virtual being, where is the value there? Like, how do you see this being monetized? Like,
it's not about monetization. It's about ownership, okay? It's about when I walk into a store, that store doesn't own me. I own me, right? But why is it when I walk into Facebook, Facebook owns me? That's not how it should be. I should walk into Facebook and I still own me, all right? And so if we're going to be in a virtual world, we should own ourselves. And so NFTs are going to allow us to certify that ownership and easily interchange what those beings are, right? So in the middle of a Facebook virtual store, I can swap to another character like that I also own, right? And I can own my clothes, I can own my capital, I can own everything in a virtual space. So far, all these companies making virtual experiences own our stuff. Gun skins, they're all owned by the not gun company, but rather the video game who's selling those gun skins. If you're not familiar, video games allow you to buy virtual objects such as skinning your character, your outfits, your weapons, whatever it is that you're doing in that game. The money you pay is theirs, and so are the skins that you bought are theirs, you know, tied to your account. So now what's different is if I buy a skin that's a universally respected skin, then I go to one game, I can bring my skin to the game, layer it on my car, for instance, and then I take that skin and I go to another game and I layer it on my house, for instance, and that is the value of the NFTs, is the portability and the ownership. And we're really like seriously new on this, but I think it's the only way forward, that in 10, 20 years it's inevitable that you'll have the option of ownership of everything that you interface with. But here's the other thing, and this is what you really need to know, is you might be in a space that is owned by somebody else. And that's fascinating, and this gets into the concept of owning virtual land and the inevitable value of that. And just as virtual spaces emerge, ownership will now be able to move into the virtual space. And that's very special, but it's going to have very serious real-world impacts as well.
Sure, that's incredible. There's so many different directions that we can go with this. And
I want to talk about the real-world impacts, perhaps.
Please.
Yeah, so I was just reflecting on this just yesterday, really inspired by this conference, that who's to say if we, you know, think of the screen time app. You know, they tell us how much we're using our phones now and our devices. It's going up and up every year, right? Hours and hours in these virtual spaces. So who's to say if we actually spend 14 to 15 to 16 hours a day in augmented reality, in virtual reality, how much are we going to value our real-world possessions versus our virtual possessions? Or how much will those interplay? You know, this concept is called phygital, right? Like you have a physical version of something and you have a digital version of something. So how much are we going to value, and when and if there will be a tip to virtual value over real world value? What that starts to look like is you stop owning a home, perhaps. You are more mobile. You can travel the world and see whoever you want, but you're still connected to where everyone else is, spending the most of their time, which is whatever device you have with you, okay? So if you can take the world with you anywhere you go, where would you go? Whereas we anchor ourselves in this form of settling to homes, to neighborhoods, which has so much value that will be disrupted, and maybe not in the best way. We'll have to see.
Man, it's so interesting. Every time we talk about this, I always just get so amazed. We literally sat there in a coffee shop in the mall yesterday and probably talked for 2 hours about all this.
Yeah.
It's been super interesting, like hearing all this stuff here. Another place that we were at was Infinity Festival last month, and that was really cool. And you had mentioned a lot about kind of this timeline as to when you think that we will all be in this digital space, when you think that we will all be embodying virtual influencers. Can you kind of elaborate on that, like this timeline that you see?
Yes, it's challenging. You know, I think that digital adoption is driven by people being born, right? That you are born and raised into the current mindset of the world, or whatever mindset of your region, right? And what happens is, slowly and more progressively, we're seeing virtual adoption. You know, I was born, I guess you would say my parents were born without the internet. I was born with the internet. I think the current generation is born on the internet, and we're going to see that get deeper and deeper over time. So I think there's just 100 years, you know, a century of people who haven't been born yet. When we've all passed, and anyone who's born today, as of right now, has passed, I think that future generation will be living very deeply in virtual worlds. So maybe it looks like 80 to 100 years.
It's super interesting also because the best part about, or the coolest part about a virtual being is that it can surpass that. Like, it can live on forever, and it kind of goes back to the whole brand thing, and the reason why they're so influential and so integral in brand kind of marketing. This medium can live on even as people come and go, and let's say you have, you know, a very big influencer that like talks about the brand that is related to the brand that everyone says, you know, oh man, I see this person, I immediately think of this brand. But with this virtual being, you have the opportunity to just live this on forever. And you were saying it's like a team.
Yeah, actually, I might summate that with just an idea, right? Who is Walt Disney and who is Mickey Mouse, if not a memory of, you know, someone who has passed, right? That is carried forward by a team who really believes in that IP and believes in what that has created, right? We were just talking about Marvel and just the continuation of the Marvel universe enabled by Disney's success and by the success of Mickey Mouse, really. So the power of the IP that you can create is unlimited. It's untapped, right? And so we're seeing more team-oriented creation of virtual beings with decentralization and ownership and profile picture projects. I just think that we're going to see some of the most successful, like I think that celebrity will be a decentralized, widely adopted virtual being. But yeah, that said, I think we're really potentially coming up on time. I will say there's another session following this where, while Max has been asking me these questions, I'm going to just answer all of your questions in the next session. So any that you have, I would like to engage with you. And so if you'd like to stay, take a break maybe for a moment, and then come back, and then we can go deep into Q&A with you and get your questions answered as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christopher. Again, you know, this is Christopher Travers. He is the co-founder and chief creative officer at Offbeat Media. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. We love being here.